It is the sports world's whodunit, the super scandal before the Super Bowl. So who or what let the air out of Tom Brady's footballs? Well, the New England Patriots quarterback says it wasn't him, and his head coach Bill Belichick is also denying any wrongdoing. In an odd press conference yesterday, Belichick turned scientist, even while denying he's a scientist. He was explaining in detail how weather likely contributed to those 11 footballs becoming deflated in last Sunday's hugely high-rated game. Now, Belichick failed to mention
the atmospheric conditions. They were adjusted to the climatic conditions. The balls, reached an equilibrium. They were down approximately 1.5 pounds per square inch. This is the end of this subject for me for a long time. Okay.
So we heard there how he failed to mention how the Indianapolis Colts footballs were somehow immune to those same conditions he was describing. Now, league officials say the Patriots footballs were, in fact, underinflated, but they're not sure how it happened or who, if anyone, is responsible for it. You can almost hear the investigative reporters kicking into high gear because somehow Deflategate has become one of the top news stories in the country. And I want to examine why. By the way, as we talk about it, keep in mind here, the NFL is basically a big media company. They produce entertaining competitions for tens of millions of viewers. So scandals on the field, even just perceived scandals, can sometimes really affect the networks that televise the games. So let me start by bringing in two former NFL players. Chris Kluwe spent 8 years with the Minnesota Vikings, and Tim Green played 8 seasons with the Atlanta Falcons. Guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So, Chris, you were a punter. What do you think happened here?
I think the Patriots definitely deflated the balls to try and gain a competitive advantage, but I think overall it doesn't really matter because from the initial reports that are out, the refs reinflated them at halftime. So, the second half when they go on their huge scoring run, they're doing it with regulation footballs. And the NFL has plenty of other scandals that actually mean something for people to be concerned about rather than what the PSI is in a football.
You wrote for Time Magazine, every player's sole purpose out there is to entertain you, and the more likely they are to entertain you, the more likely the people are going to keep watching. You said when you played, you would do whatever you could to make the footballs easier to kick. So give me a couple examples of that.
So basically with K-balls are slightly different than quarterback balls. The team gets the quarterback balls the week beforehand, and the equipment managers get about a week to break them in because quarterbacks are ranked more importantly than punters and kickers. So that's it's kind of one of the quirks of football. But essentially during the game, when we got the K-balls, we would try to beat them up. We'd try to slam them into benches. We'd try to push the ends in, anything to try to make them a little bit more worn in so that we could do our job better.
And Tim, you think someone tampered intentionally here as well, but along with Chris, you say it didn't affect the outcome of the game. So is there part of this scandal that does matter, something that we should be paying attention to, something that investigative reporters should follow up on?
Well, it matters in the sense that if someone broke the rules, you can't have that. The NFL doesn't want that. And this is a team that had the Spygate scandal several years ago. And I disagree with Chris slightly in that I think that having a deflated ball, especially over time, if you factor it in, it may explain why the Patriots, part of the reason why the Patriots have such a low fumble ratio. It's extraordinarily lower than any other team in the league. And if, in fact, someone has been deflating the balls consistently throughout the last several seasons, then I think that over time it could have a statistical impact. And as Chris pointed out, the reason why he and his counterparts who are kickers do every single thing they can, because the NFL is a game, it's a league where even the slightest advantage is something that everyone is seeking because the line between winning and losing is so fine. So I'm not saying that it's Tom Brady or Coach Belichick. The lawyer in me says everyone's innocent until proven guilty. They've both denied any knowledge or wrongdoing, and I would accept that. But I think that his explanation, the coach's explanation yesterday, didn't completely fulfill my idea that somebody tampered with these balls.
In that press conference, I've never seen a press conference like that. Do you think that Belichick has handled this well, coming out there all of a sudden, surprising the press with a press conference, then showing up late to it, and then going on and on and on about this?
I think that Bill Belichick is a master of strategy. And his strategy right now is to win his 4th championship with the Patriots and to beat the Seattle Seahawks. And so what he needs to do is, in that bigger game, is he's got to get people's minds off of this. He wants to dispense with this. He's come up with an argument as to what may have happened where no one tampered with the balls at all. It seemed a little thin, but it was an argument, and there, it was somewhat plausible. And I think a lot of people are saying, well, maybe this is what happened. So what he did was he was able to throw that out there as an explanation, and now say to his team and also say to the media, enough of this. We may never know, but here's an explanation. We're talking and thinking about the Seattle Seahawks.
And yet journalists are going to keep hounding him about this and keep investigating this. Chris, do you think in some ways, I don't mean to sound conspiratorial here, but the NFL has a lot of bigger issues and bigger true scandals to deal with. Is this somewhat good for them? Is this a distraction from those bigger stories?
Yeah, I think this is one of the best things that could have happened to the NFL right now, and I don't think that they're in any way behind it. I don't think there was any organized push to be like, hey, let's reveal this Patriots thing to draw the heat off us. But I do think that, with the Deflategate stuff, the Ballghazi stuff, whatever you want to call it, the fact is that people aren't focusing on Ray Rice. They're not focusing on Adrian Peterson.
You just said Ballghazi. Let's just talk about that for a second. The way language is taken here. I mean, I know that if Carl Bernstein was here, he would say he hates this. It's called Deflategate because it actually dilutes the importance of Watergate or the importance of Benghazi. Why is it that we have to attach a label to all of these sorts of stories, like Ballghazi, you think?
I think it's a mimetic thing where it's much easier to transfer the context of that information when you have a keyword that kind of signifies what you're talking about. So, so people are familiar with Watergate, they're familiar with Benghazi, and so by labeling that as the same thing, then you get that context and suggest that it's similar to that.
Well, what would you try to label or give a label to for the bigger stories you think should be getting more attention with regards to the NFL?
Well, I think there are three main ones. There are the player discipline and domestic violence / criminal stuff that's going on. I think that's a really big one for the NFL. I think another one is the stadium situation where you have public financing going to privately owned stadiums, and the St. Louis Rams right now are case in point. They're essentially holding St. Louis hostage and saying they will move to California if they don't get their money. And then the third one would be the medical issues. The fact that the NFL has done this concussion settlement, but what are the protocols for players to qualify for that? And does that mean that enough players will be qualifying for that money? Or is it set up in a way where the very, very few players will actually qualify to get a payout?
So, Tim, do stories like those need Twitter-friendly hashtags?
Look, I think that the NFL doesn't want this out there. It's slightly embarrassing to them. Their focus isn't to try, but I don't think their focus is to try to diffract attention away from any of these other issues. I think those issues have run their course and they're out there or they're not out there. I think that really what this is a function of the NFL's own success. People pay such close attention to this. We've got a superstar quarterback and a superstar coach and team, and they may have broken the rules, or someone within there may have broken the rules. And as the American public, I mean, it's the lead story. I'm sorry to laugh, but it's incredible to me. But that's how much we care. We care about these teams. We care about the NFL. People are paying a lot of attention to it. On the more serious side of that, we don't want our heroes to cheat, right? And even if it's bending the rules a little bit, there are people who don't want that. We hold the NFL and everything about it to an incredibly high standard. And I think that the name Deflategate, I think it's just kind of funny. But it certainly isn't of the seriousness of Watergate, Benghazi, and even in sports, it's not as serious as the Spygate thing where they were stealing signals, which wasn't that huge of a deal, and certainly not on the same level as the Bountygate, where New Orleans Saints players were being offered money to hurt opposing players. I mean, that is something on a completely other level.
Well, Tim Green and Chris Kluwe, thank you both for being here this morning. Great talking with you.
Thanks very much,
thank you.
Brian.